question of whether or not cloud or data center environments are more or less secure when deploying enterprise container environments. I think it's a question that only exists because of sales agendas that play out in organizations that are either competing as advocates for cloud or competing as advocates for data center technology. So I generally try not to be too drawn on it, largely because I think that it's really down to your design and also the operational framework that you wrap around those platforms. But I mean, I think it's probably worth walking a path. There are definitely some basic things you've just got to get right. So, a good security design that also addresses the design of the operational framework is absolutely key. I think following good industry standards is key. So there's been a lot of mature thinking out there that organizations can go and embrace. So whether you're looking at NIST or looking at CIS, the combination of elements from both of those that give you a particular security posture is positive. Certainly we look at the CIS Secure Suite membership is key to what we do, and our ability to go and set benchmarks, set good security benchmarks is key to the design process. But just, whether you're in data center, whether you're in cloud, there are just some very good basics that you should get right. From very high level stuff around role-based access controls, that's important. How you think about managing privileged access to privileged groups and privileged accounts, that it's important to get the right rigor, the right operational rigor and design around that. Managing identities at scale is a real challenge for big businesses. Having fewer accounts and logons to manage is an important aspect of good identity management. There's a whole bunch of tools out there that you can employ, but starting with principles that says have fewer accounts is a really good principle to have. I had quite an interesting stat the other day that certainly in the Western and the more developed worlds that the average person's getting to somewhere around 30, 40, 50 accounts that they would use from month to month to access a whole variety of things that are online, and that's not a great place to be. And what it tends to drive is people start to reuse the same passwords over and over again, and that's something best avoided and creates some personal risk. I think the same logic is true in an enterprise context. It's better to have fewer accounts, as few as possible, and then once you have got those accounts, manage those accounts really robustly with very good operational rigor wrapped around how those accounts are managed. There's encryption processes that you need to get right to make sure that you handle data that's sitting at rest as well as data that's in transit. Good principles around that's important. Security, and the more that you think about moving from traditional data center security frameworks and methods to cloud, and that includes SaaS technologies as well as the hyperscaler environments, Microsoft Azure, AWS. Really important to think about cloud and operational security more generally as a very multi-layered approach, and there's a whole set of frameworks, methods, tool sets that can be employed there. But now kind of bring that a little bit closer to home in what we do with the kind of Microsoft Azure cloud context and container context. Containers and serverless really lends itself to much higher degrees of automation. So there are some additional things that you need to think about getting right there. Thinking about how you check code for vulnerabilities in the release cycle. So when we think about DevOps and CI/CD and much higher cadence release around promoting applications and services into production, it's really important to check for vulnerabilities in the code base as part of that process. The other thing that container technologies and serverless is driving is the industry is embracing these microservices architectures, and we start to break out these architectures into the component parts. And you also think about development, production, and other non-production environments. How do you secure and protect the traffic and the communication channels that exist between those microservices, architectural components, as well as the environments. And thinking about whether you do that with TLS or something else. I guess the key thing is it's important to have thought about it. Thinking about Azure for a second as well, looking at and embracing the good elements of the Azure cloud adoption frameworks that Microsoft had put together. There's also been a lot of work and a lot of investment from Microsoft in getting the Azure policy constructs right. So, looking at the cloud adoption framework, also looking at the Azure policy constructs and choosing the bits that are right for you as an organisation is important. We certainly do that, and we layer on top of that the work that we are doing in the CIS space to make sure that we comply with good benchmarks there. So the combination of things is important for us. And I think also just making sure that when you begin to lay down designs that are targeted for enterprise, that they are designed with security in mind from the ground up, and you're handling the security posture and the frameworks, right out the gate. Then look to tune it down if it's not right for a given scenario, a given business scenario. But certainly, bigger enterprises, we'd advocate that you kind of build and code these platforms with security in mind and built from the ground up. Building with code, whatever your chosen methods are, whether that's Terraform or something else, making sure that security posture is embedded within the code base is an important step. And there's tools and technologies and processes that certainly we would employ to not only start with quite a strong security posture, but also make sure that you remain there. But I think that the fundamental question that you asked about, whether one environment is more secure than the other, I'm a very strong belief that it's really about your design, both the technology components and the operational frameworks. That's the bit that's most important to get that right, and also make sure that you maintain that security posture if that's important for you and your business. So the cloud providers are doing a very solid job of making sure that you're building these very secure environments, but that can be weakened with a poor implementation on your part. So that's probably the first and last time I'd be drawing on that question, because I think that industry people, I'm probably stating the obvious to, they absolutely get this, but the question was asked on multiple occasions over the last few weeks, so I thought I'd try and address it.